Hello and welcome to this free special training for the 5 Steps to Rapid Piano Playing course. My name is Eric Rader with PianoLessonsMadeSimple.com, and I wanted to take an opportunity to give you a little bit of a taste of what the new book that I've been working on is all about. The title is 5 Steps to Rapid Piano Playing, and the reason why I created this book was because when I asked my readers what was the number one thing that was keeping you from learning to play the piano, time and time again, the thing that I kept hearing was the lack of time. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a book that kind of outlined the process of learning to play the piano and give you 5 simple steps that was going to get you to play the piano as quickly as possible. Now, one of the things that I wanted to let you know before we actually get started is that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to play the piano tomorrow, or that you're not going to have to dedicate time and practice to learning to play the piano. What I've done in this book is that I've laid out the steps that are required to learn to play the piano. And there's still going to be some necessary practice time that's going to be involved, but what I've done is I've given you the 5 things that every single person who wants to learn to play by ear should know. And then what you can do is you can use those 5 steps to actually sit down and start practicing so that you can get yourself playing as quickly as possible. And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that everyone understood, was that when you're learning to play the piano, you don't have to sit and take hours and hours of your day to practice. If you just can focus on some of the key steps of learning to play, then you're actually going to cut out a lot of that extra time that's necessary, or a lot of time that people think is necessary to learn to play. So what I wanted to do in this video was go ahead and go through the 5 steps and tell you a little bit about what is involved in each of those steps so that you can start using some of these things and get yourself playing as quickly as possible. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about the actual 5-step process that I've created. The number one thing that you need to remember in this course is that you have to actually look at each one of these steps and follow them in order, because if you don't, a lot of times what people don't understand is that when they're learning to play, they think that they can just, let's just focus on chords, or let's focus on the diatonic chords, or let's talk about chord progressions. But what's important that you need to understand is that each of these steps are important and they build off of one another. So when you're going through each of these steps, you need to try to follow them in order so that you can get the most out of the information that I'm sharing with you. So the very first thing that we're going to be talking about is step number 1, which is finding the key of a song. And I know this is kind of common for you, but finding the key to the song is the first thing that you have to focus on. Before you can actually start playing, you have to know the key to the song. And in this video, I'm going to go through each of the steps that I use and that I've included in the book to find the key to a song. And the second step is the number system. And when you start learning to play the piano, the thing that you need to focus on the most is actually learning music as numbers rather than focusing on music as notation and notes on a piece of sheet music. And that's one of the things that gets people tripped up a lot, is instead of focusing on numbers and focusing on the easy parts of music, they focus on the sheet music and the notes. And what I'm going to share with you is how, instead of focusing on these abstract concept of notes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a way that you can transfer all of this into numbers so that it makes things a lot easier, because I know, as far as myself, that numbers make a whole lot more sense to me instead of a bunch of notes on a page. So what I've done is I've given you this idea of the number system so that you can start using these numbers in place of the notes, so that it can actually get you playing quicker than having to take years and years of focusing on sight reading and reading musical notation. Step number 3 is to learn the 4 essential chords, or the 4 main chords that every musician should know. And these 4 chords are so important, because what happens is if you can learn each of these 4 chords, then you'll be able to build any other chord on the piano. And because what happens is that each of these chords builds off of one another. And for example, the first chord that you need to learn is the major chord. The second one is the minor chord. And what happens is if you can learn the major chord, then you can learn the minor chord because the minor chord is just an extension or an alteration of the major chord. Then the next chord that you need to learn is an augmented chord. And basically what that chord is it's an alteration of the major chord again. Then the next chord is the diminished chord, and then if you can learn the minor chord, then you'll be able to easily learn the diminished, because the diminished is just an alteration or an adjustment of the minor chord. So learning these four essential chords is vitally important, because what you can do is you can basically transfer your knowledge from the previous chords that you just learned and start learning brand new chords, and ones that you had never thought possible, or ones that seemed a lot more advanced. You'll be able to then transfer and start building some of those larger, more extended chords or even more difficult chords, because you've learned the four foundational chords that we're going to be talking about. Step number 4 is learning diatonic chords. And diatonic chords are very important because it allows you to know exactly what chords you can play in a particular key. Diatonic chords are very important because what happens is you can basically, you're given a formula that you can use to pretty much guess or be pretty confident about what chords are going to be in a particular key. So, for example, let's say that the song that you're playing is in the key of G. Using diatonic chords, you can be fairly confident that the chords that are going to be in that song are going to be a G major chord, an A minor chord, a B minor chord, a C major chord, a D major chord, an E minor chord, and an F diminished chord. And basically what I did there was I just followed the formula that I'm going to share with you later, the diatonic formula. And what that allows you to do is it lets you pretty much guarantee that those 7 chords are going to be the foundation for the G major scale. So basically you can use that formula and apply it to any key on the piano and be fairly certain that those are going to be the 7 chords that you can play in that song. And it's pretty great because it allows you to make better judgment calls or better guesses when it comes to playing your next song. So instead of just blindly guessing or just picking at random certain chords that you think you can play, if you use the diatonic scale or the diatonic chords, then you can be fairly confident that the song or the chords that you're choosing are gonna belong in that scale. So instead of having tons of chords that you can choose from, it kind of narrows things down a little bit to only a set of 7 chords that you can choose from. And the final step number 5, is finding patterns in music. And what people don't really understand when learning to play the piano is that music has a set pattern. And if you listen to a lot of your songs, your favorite songs, you'll notice that a lot of them sound the same. I don't know if you've ever seen, there was a viral video a few years back that they looked at a ton of popular songs, some of the most popular songs that have ever been written, and they found a commonality between all of these songs. They found that they had the exact same 4 chords in all of these songs. What this tells us is that all of the songs that we think are so unique and so special, they're actually a lot of the same. They have the same chord progressions, they have the same melody, a lot of the same melodies. They share a lot of the same core foundations of the song that are used over and over and over again throughout tons of other songs throughout history. So if you're able to find these patterns, then you're going to be able to understand how chord structures work and how a lot of the songs that we play and a lot of songs that we learn are very similar to each other. It's just they've changed a couple of things about them. They follow the same chord progression or the same chord structure. It's just they've changed the melody or they've changed the words or the rhythm to make the song unique. Now that we've talked about the 5 steps and what each of the steps are, it's time, let's go ahead and let's move in and talk about each of the steps individually and kind of go in depth with the strategy that we're going to use to start playing the piano. The first step that we're going to go over is finding the key of the song. So moving on to finding the key of the song, the very first thing that we need to do when learning a new song is focusing on finding the key of the song. And this can be a little bit difficult if you've never actually tried playing by ear before, but I'm going to share with you a couple of tips that can help you to find the key of the song without having to look at any kind of sheet music or anything like that. And the first step to finding the key of the song is actually just listening to the song intently, and you have to actually listen to the song a number of times. And my general rule of thumb is to listen to the song about 3 times through. And the first time you listen to the song, you want to just listen for, you just want to listen to the song. You don't want to really be listening for the key just yet. You want to kind of listen for different chord changes or the melody of the song, just to kind of get yourself a little familiar with the song. And the second time through, you want to listen, you want to try and find the tonal center of the song or the common note in the song. And we'll talk some more about that here in just a second too. And then the third time, you really want to focus and nail down that common tone. So the first thing that you want to do is really focus on listening to the song and focus on really hearing the different movements in the song and how the song actually is structured. And the second step is to find the tonal center of the song, or it can also be called the common tone or the home bass tone or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But this tonal center or this common tone is going to be the foundation that the entire scale or the entire key is built around. And what's important is that if you can find this one note, you'll be able to find the key basically of any song. And this can be a little bit difficult because a lot of times when you're listening for the common tone, there's a lot of other things happening in the song. So for example, let's say that you're listening to your song and you find this one note and it sounds like the perfect note that the entire song is built around. But there's a lot of other things that are happening, like there's harmonies and there's melodies that are moving around in different places. There's chords that sound the same. Like let's say that, for example, they're playing a 5 chord in the scale, then you might think that the root note of that 5 chord could be the common tone, when in reality, the common tone is the root note of the first chord. And that can kind of get a little bit tricky when you're trying to find the key of a song. But one of the main things that I can tell you to do when trying to find the tonal center of the song is just try and hum the one note that you think can be played throughout the entire song. So for example, if you're listening to a song and you can hum the one note throughout the entire song, that chances are that that's going to be your common tone. And you might not be able to get it the first time through, but what you need to do is listen through the song a couple of times and try and really find that one note that you can play or you can hum throughout the entire song. And that's going to be your common tone. And what's important about that note is now that you found that common tone, you can then use that tone to build the scale. So now you found your common tone, you found that one tonal center by humming. What do you need to do with it? Because my suggestion is not to try to pick it out on the piano, because if you can hum that tone, what you're doing is you're helping your ear to be able to hear the tone and then also recreate that tone with your voice. And that's going to be able to help you to find the common tone of a song a lot faster if you're able to recreate that tone by humming or singing it or whatever you want to do. So once you've found that note, you need to go ahead and try and transfer that note to the piano, which is your third step, is to take that note that you're humming and then transfer it to the piano. In order to do this, the best thing that you can do is just start on middle C. Start on your middle note in the middle of the piano, which is middle C, and then try and match what you're humming with what you're playing on the piano. So start on middle C, and then if that note doesn't match up with what you're humming, then start moving up the piano, playing each black and white note as you move up the piano. So you'll start with C. If that doesn't match, move up to D flat. If that's not a match, move up to D. And keep moving up to E flat, E, F, until you've found a match for what you're playing. Now that you've found the common tone on the piano, you can actually start building the scale now. So you've went through the process, you've listened to the song, you've tried to hum the tonal center, and then you've transferred that note to the piano. Now you've actually given a name to that note. So now we know that the note is named C, or it's G, or A flat, or whatever the note is. Now you need to go ahead and you need to build a scale around that note. And the number one place that you need to start is with the major scale. And so let's say, for example, that you found the note and it's an A flat. Well, the first place you need to start is by trying an A flat major scale. And what you can do is you can turn the song back on and actually play an A flat major scale over the song and see if it sounds good. chances are that this is going to be the right scale because the majority of music is played in the major scale. But if it's not, then you can try another scale. You can maybe try the minor scale or a blues scale or some other type of scale until what you're playing is matches with what is in the song. And that's going to be the key of the song. So now you know that the song is in A flat or whatever the common tone of the scale was, because most of in most music we know that the note, that common note, that's going to be the entire foundation of the song, and that's going to be the note that the scale is built on. That's going to be the note that the chord progression is built around, and that's going to kind of be your home base that you can always refer back to and build everything around that one note. Now that you know how to find the key of a song, I wanted to leave you with an action step, and this is the first action step of many that are going to be included in the following videos. And the first one is to start listening for the common tone. So what you need to do is go find a couple of songs, find some of your favorite songs that you like, and start listening for that common tone. Listen to your favorite songs and try to find that one note that the whole song is built around. And once you're able to find that note, go ahead and try and transfer it to the piano using the steps that we talked about in the video. And then once you've found that note, once you've given it a name and you've put it on the piano, go ahead and build a scale around it. Remember to try the major scale first. If the major scale doesn't work, then try the minor scale. And if that doesn't work, then try maybe a blues scale or another type of scale. So go ahead and start this action step and see if you can locate the key of the song and find the scale that the song is in. And keep an eye out for the next set of lessons where we're going to be talking about the number system and learning how we can, instead of focusing on sheet music and focusing on musical notation, we're going to start focusing on numbers and looking at music as numbers to make things a whole lot easier for us. Instead of having to take all of the time that it takes to learn to read sheet music, we're going to start looking at numbers and making things a whole lot more easier for us. So thanks a lot for joining me, and keep an eye out for the next lesson.